and gents, I'm your host, Dev, and welcome to Season 1, Episode 1 of Dev After Dark, where I link up with dynamic and interesting people to discuss their lives as well as some of the happenings on this crazy planet of ours. We're going to start the show in just a moment, but first a quick reminder for those of you that haven't already, like this video and subscribe by clicking the bell icon so you get notified of any new content that gets released. You can also follow me on Instagram and Twitter at ThatDamnDevon and follow the show on Facebook by searching Dev After Dark. Now, if for whatever reason you can't watch the show on YouTube, no worries. We're also available on podcast platforms such as Spotify, Google Podcasts, iHeartRadio, iTunes, Stitcher, Spreaker Podcast Radio app, and more. Be sure to check us out using Dev After Dark on the platform of your choice, and you can enjoy the show whenever and wherever you want. So that brings me to our first official guest of the season. He is a very talented man that decided to pick up and move from his home in Florida to sunny Los Angeles to take his shot at becoming an actor, but has since found himself building quite the career behind the camera. He's worked on projects with actors and artists including Kal Penn, Elijah Wood, Future, Bad Bunny, and on September 6th, a film he co-produced called Dauntless will be released to theaters across the United States. Joining me now live via Skype to talk about the film as well as his journey into the entertainment industry, it's Kasee Shambora. All right, so Kasee, thank you for, first and foremost, thank you for joining me. Do you listen to a lot of podcasts?
Not particularly. I listened to one called Crime Town, which is completely different than the type of podcast that you're putting on. Mm-hmm. But it's interesting. It's fun.
What's it about?
So basically, it was about back in I think it was like the 90s or something, maybe earlier than that. There was these gangs that operated up north that not a lot of people known about, and it was in a specific city. I forget which one, but they basically ran the entire city and like the police and all this stuff, and it was like a really huge deal. I think I listened to it maybe 2 years ago. I don't remember like the most details about it, but it was a crime podcast and it was dope.
Okay, so first, I want to congratulate you because September 6th, a film you co-produced is going to be hitting theaters across the United States, Dauntless. Congratulations on that. That's pretty big.
Thanks, man. Yeah, it's select theaters and it's going to be video on demand on like a bunch of platforms. It's like I believe all of them.
Okay. So I want to go first. I want to go into the movie because that's really big. I remember back when you decided you were going to head off to Los Angeles. That was back in 2015?
Yeah, it was 2015.
Yeah. And now here we are a couple years later and you have a film limited release. Like it's pretty baller. What's the film about?
So back in World War II, there was a battle of Midway, and it was, us kind of retaliating against the Japanese, and we sent a bunch of planes over to go and bomb these islands and these ships. And what not too many people know about is that oftentimes, when we bomb in general, but this specific case, a lot of the people who fly out there end up getting shot down. And those guys who end up falling into the water, like back in World War II, it's not that easy to recover somebody. They don't have any crazy GPS or electronics that's really going to help. So you end up just having a bunch of people stranded in the ocean, hoping that somebody's going to see them to flag them down. But you got to think of like the numbers in a war. Most of those people don't get found. So this is kind of the story of that happening to some people and the reaction to trying to save not only them but others.
So what made you want to take this film, work on this film? Was there anything in particular about it that drew you to it?
When I moved here, one of the first jobs was in a crime recreation show, and I was an associate producer and the field producer for a different show that worked there, I'd kind of connected with him. And then after we ended up stopped working there, he reached out and said, "Hey, I need someone to help me do basically everything." So I came over to kind of help do everything. I built a plane. It was like a 1,000-pound plane out of wood. I set up accounts with the vendors. I worked with the unions. I casted people. Like I did all these things that I had never done before. That ultimately, when put in a situation where it's like you know you got to figure it out. It was a good learning place, but overall, the environment of being able to do everything kind of taught me a lot, and that's kind of what I was aiming for, was the ability to not only do something totally different, but also to say that I now can do all these different things.
And versatility is something that is incredibly, valuable in the industry you're in. Being able to do just about anything. What was it like working behind the scenes? Because I know you like to take pictures behind the scenes of the sets you're on. What was that like being on set?
It's weird. I'm not gonna lie, it's weird. Basically, I wasn't even really much into photography until I started working in the industry. Like I kind of got some hints beforehand, but then it really picked up, and it's like you see it differently than you do as an actor. As an actor, you're kind of like in your world as a character, and you're trying to exist in your scene and all that stuff. And you don't really know what's going on around you with everything that's happening, how the lights are working. Like don't get me wrong, like you're gonna learn that and all that stuff, but like your focus is more on what your character is, and working behind the scenes. It's like I oftentimes, depending on my job, I don't interact with the actors or the scene at all. Like I'm doing all these behind the scene things, organizing all these different things, making sure that everything comes together and all this stuff. And like, it's really neat to like come by and look over and see a set and like actors doing their thing, and like me have the feeling of like knowing what it's like to be in that mental space, but knowing that I'm on the outside making sure they stay in that mental space. Like it's really interesting, and it kind of changes your perspective on like how you watch things. So like I'll notice in a show when the lighting's changed, or if there's a weird shadow, or if a frame has changed, or like all these little things, just because standing behind the camera, that's what you pay attention to.
Do you think you enjoy working behind the camera as much as you enjoy in front of the camera, or are you truly an actor at heart? Like you prefer to be in front of the camera?
Realistically, the one of the reasons why I stopped acting is because I found that it wasn't that I was passionate about acting. Like acting's cool and it's fun. What I wanted to do more so was like something different all the time, and that's why I kind of moved out here. Actually, is I was thinking like, what can I do that's ever changing, that will take me places to do things that I'd never be able to do otherwise in a different lifestyle. Like I'd never know what it's like to, I don't know, work as like a mechanical engineer. I'd never know what it's like to be a firefighter, but as an actor, you get to live those things. And what ended up happening is like I'm just not passionate about the acting side. I'm passionate about the adventure side, and I noticed that. And I found working behind the camera, I get that adventure, and I get the puzzle solving that I enjoy from like video games and shit. But I personally think I like behind the camera more, but it is nice to go in front. Don't get me wrong. It
Yeah.
is a lot of fun.
When you found out that this movie was going to be released in theaters, limited release, what was your reaction?
It's pretty cool, you know? Like, that, yeah. It's interesting because I went to see it at the crew screening, and it's just like crazy seeing my face on the big screen, and like in that time it was like me and our friends and the crew and all that stuff, and like processing it like that was like, we made this movie, it's really cool. And like now finding out that they're going to be releasing it in some theaters and it's going to be like everywhere, like it's not like a huge release. It's absolutely not large, like
But let's not
any.
downplay it, because it's not
But
because
it's
it's
not. It can't be downplayed. It's in
yeah.
theater. Like it's
Uh,
fucking cool, you
that's
know.
that's a huge deal. Yeah,
Yeah, it's
it's
awesome.
not everyone gets, to have a film, even limited
Exactly.
release.
Yeah,
Um
it's
what are some of the locations, some of the cities where it will be playing?
it's gonna be in Los Angeles. It's actually gonna be in Tampa. I gotta full list actually.
Hold on.
Here, let me
I
see if
think
I
actually
can.
I think I have it right here. One
Got
second.
it.
I got it.
So
Do you want
yeah,
to or do you want me
yeah, I
to?
can do. It, I can do. It.
Oh, go ahead.
It's gonna be in Los Angeles, Minneapolis, Seattle, Chicago, Austin, Dallas, Houston, Cleveland, Tampa, San Francisco, and then on a bunch of all the video on demand platforms like Amazon Direct Video and Vudu and all that fun stuff. It'll also be on Xbox, which is neat.
That mean, when you say limited release, you are in every major market in the United States. Like,
Yeah, it's pretty nuts.
like you like that's a big deal. So what's the next step from here? You have a film that's launching September 6th. What are your next plans? Are you already working on your next project? Are you still kind of in promo mode? Is the team for the film still in promo mode? Like, what's going on?
So, in regards to that group, just because like working out here, you work with a bunch of different groups of people. So, like right now, I'm coordinating the second feature film of two feature films from one company, which is like with them, I could stick with them and like grow and do all their things, which I'll do. But with the Dauntless guys at Bayou Pictures, now that we've finished that, they're over there planning the next one. One of the main things with this one was kind of to show people like this is what we can make, and we can make it much bigger. And now that this one's about to release, they're now planning what's the next one that we're going to do. Like, how much bigger do we want to do this? So actually, Tuesday, I'm actually going to go and meet up with Mike and kind of talk about the plan for the next one. So I actually, I guess all I can say is that there is a plan for one, and I will be finding out shortly.
That's exciting.
Yeah.
So let's take it back a little bit. What were some of your comedy / acting influences growing up?
It's interesting because I didn't really have any. One of the like main things for me is like I never really had role models or anyone to look up to. And a lot of the time that I spent growing up, I spent grounded, which is great, and also video games. So a lot of my humor, truthfully, comes from hanging out with friends and stuff like that, but also like the video game world and like silly comedies like the South Park and like that level of like offensive and stuff like that. And it was, I guess, like what I always looked up to wasn't anyone specific, but it was always like you know do and think and say what you enjoy and push the boundaries of what can or can't be accepted, and see if you can see how far you can push the bar without being a problem, which I kind of do occasionally.
Yeah, because you said you spent most of your time grounded. Would you say you spent a lot of your time in your youth pushing boundaries?
Yeah, and that's kind of been my thing. Like, I don't want to say like I'm the kid that like would like slowly push the cup towards the edge as they're like
But
looking
you
at me
are.
telling me to stop. But
But you are.
it's kind of fun. So and I don't know, that kind of translated over with like everything. A lot of people say like one joke or one criticism is like there's you don't want to put a hat on a hat. Like that's criticizing comedy where it's like you have one joke, don't add too many more jokes. And I'm like, no, add fucking six hats. Like I want to see how far we can take this. Which again, it oftentimes it's great. Some people it might be a bit much. They want it simple, but I think what I think is funny, I'm gonna try to do it.
Do you have any writing aspirations as far as writing and producing your own material?
Kind of, not highly specific. Like I do write some stuff. I have a couple different series written out, and I mean, not really full series, like 5 episodes for one, and like ideas for others, and like there's just like silly things that I've done, and I think down the road, a couple of those ideas I'd love to fully invest into. But right now it's not really. That's not the focus, probably as much as it should be. I think one of the main things I say is I should write more. So I guess that.
In a time when you don't necessarily have to live in LA to work in entertainment and acting and film, do you recommend people do what you did and, up and move to LA to make the attempt, or does it not do they not necessarily have to make such a big jump like maybe you did even 5 years ago?
I truthfully, I would say it depends on your situation. I think that in my case, I grew up in the same town my whole life. I never left. I didn't know what else was out there. Everybody said to like, live the standard lifestyle of grow up, get a job and or go to college to find a house to retire and do whatever. And like most of the people that I grew up with are still the same in that town. There's a lot of people in Florida that just never left. And you know, I think that as a if you want to be the type of person that's like hurrying up to settle down, then don't worry about it. Like if you're trying to like experience all that it is, it's not about being in the industry. It's kind of about just like reaching beyond what you know and learning more and experiencing more and like some people want that. Like I wanted that. I wanted to go out and see more things and find out, what's over here. Like I hear that these type of people are like this. What's that like? Um, you know, I would say definitely jump because if that's what your craving is and you don't jump, like that's if you're craving adventure, but you're not willing to chase it, then you're not really craving adventure.
Yeah.
Um, but if you want to settle down and you're like, I want to go to LA so I can become rich, so I can buy a house and do all this, it's like, nah, you probably should just like find a
Stay
different
home.
way to do it. You should just stay home because like coming over here, it's not easy. Like you're
You should
gonna move over
just
here and live with four people. Like
yeah.
it's nuts. So, and that's the thing is most people have multiple roommates, and it's not in like a bad situation like other countries. It's pretty bad. Like, but again, are you willing to make that sacrifice? If you are, if you're trying to have fun and you're trying to live life like in the fun route, definitely do it. But if you're trying to settle, stay at home.
So what was the hardest and the easiest thing about making that move? What was that transition like for you? What was the most difficult thing to kind of adjust to after making that move?
Um, dude, I don't. It was pretty fun. I'm not gonna lie. Like, don't get me wrong. What was the hardest thing? It's hard to say what was hard because it did go pretty smoothly. I guess. So basically, when I left, what was kind of hard to accept, but I wanted to, so it wasn't that bad, was knowing that I didn't have anywhere to live. I didn't have anywhere to work. I didn't have anything planned out. I just had a certain amount of money in my bank account, and I was going, and I had LA in my GPS. So getting there, finding a place, landing, uh, living with someone and knowing that you have a finite amount of money left and you can't ask your parents for more money. Like the next thing you can do is drive back home, but that's going to cost at least another $1,000, which you just lost because you're spending all this time trying to survive. So like kind of accepting that after you jump, there's going to be a little bit of free fall before either a parachute opens up or you hit the ground. And that in between area that I was living in for about 2 months, like it started off nice, and then towards the end, it got a little adrenaline-y. But ultimately, I got a job and things worked out.
And so what was the easiest part? What was the most fun part about that move, the transition?
The best part about coming over to LA was leaving Florida. It was it was
Fair.
driving. I'll never forget, like driving in my car and being like, I have nowhere to be. Like I don't have to land in LA when my GPS says I will. I'm gonna do whatever I want. And like that sense of freedom was amazing, especially going across the whole country because it's like I drive until I get tired, and then it's like, where do I want to stay at? Oh, here's some janky hotel in like some whatever Texas, like things like that. Like the feeling of freedom to be able to just do whatever without any limitations. If I have to hurry up to or I have to finish whatever, that was probably like the best feeling I've ever had. But sitting and like thinking like I did it, like I'm leaving Florida, like that was I'm still proud of that.
I mean, I'm sure there are a bunch of people uh, here that are super proud of you for leaving too. Um, now, LA is known for being kind of a wacky, weird, sometimes grungy place. Um,
Hmm.
have you encountered any crazy or just really odd situations since being there? I mean, as odd as they can be when you come from a place that that houses Florida man.
Yeah, that's the hard thing. I guess one thing is like it's interesting because in Florida there's a couple of weird things. I don't want to. I can go on forever about this actually, but no. So in Florida, like let's say like the homeless community, they're there, but they're not really, and maybe it is to people who haven't come over here, but it's like they're not really too prominent everywhere. Like you see some people on some street corners, you might see some campouts, but it's not really like it's not too crazy, you know. It's just there's homeless people everywhere.
Mhm.
But over here, they're like no joke. Every street corner, there's somebody there. There's tents in every part of LA. Like I live in Van Nuys, which is considered like the recently rinsed out recycling bin of LA, which means that it's kind of nice. And there's just campsites all throughout, and it's insane because there's no way to avoid noticing that it's an ongoing, consistent community that lives here in abundance. And you kind of learn to live with it. And what ends up happening is like there's so many people that need so much, what sucks is like you kind of learn to live with it, and it's not, you don't see them as sympathetically as you did when you first came, because it's like every single street corner is somebody saying they need money, and you do that for as many years as you live here, and it's like eventually it's just like, yeah, that's just another guy, but it's like, yeah, but that's another guy, you know.
Yeah.
So that mind warp is kind of something that I think is worth noting, that it's crazy to see that, but to know that that's kind of how we adapt to living here is, it's nuts.
It's got to be really odd knowing that you live in a state in a area that has so much wealth yet has so much poverty as well. Like
Hmm.
there's like this
It's insane.
a huge gap there. Um, if you didn't move out to LA, what do you think you would be doing with yourself right now?
Um, Probably sleeping all the time. No, basically, I think I would still be working in sales. I worked at Cricket Wireless as a manager there, and I'd probably be doing something like managing some retail store or some every day is the same thing job. Yeah.
I'm of the personal opinion that retail is one of the worst uh, jobs to have. God bless them, because I
Hmm.
mean, like, what would we do without retail workers, really? But I mean, I guess Amazon is kind of the answer to that. But still, uh, retail is no joke. So, like, trying to imagine your life as just never-ending retail. No offense to anyone watching who is in the retail
Hmm.
industry, but like that's a long dark road to look down. So
Yeah. And it sucks because like that's what I come from, customer service, and I come from sales, and like those people, a lot of those people love it. Like that's what they want. Again,
yeah,
some of the people, they like to settle. I want to work at this store for 20 years and grow up the ladder, and have my family do my thing. Like everybody's kind of lifestyle that they pursue is different.
yeah.
Um, but retail, like it takes a certain special kind of what's the word I'm looking for? Discipline to kind of hold through in the long term, and a certain drive to success that I just don't hold.
Now, how has because your job has you, here today, gone tomorrow for 3 to 6 months. Like, what's it like trying to maintain personal, and social relationships when your job has you gone and busy so often?
Um, you don't really have much for one, so it kind of sucks because like basically working in the industry you work, it's not really freelance anymore because payroll is becoming more of a thing. But and that's just a separate conversation. But basically, I'll work one job for a day or 3 days or 2 weeks or 2 months or 3 months or 6 months. And there's always gaps in between those times. And through every job, you socialize with everybody that you work with. So you meet 20 new friends every single time, which is great. And then, you kind of give each other jobs, and that's kind of how you hop from job to job, and there's times where you have weeks down where you don't do anything and you thought you'd be working, but you're not. And it's like, oh God, I need money. And then your friend calls you and says, hey, do you want to come and work? And it's like, hell yeah, dude. So what ends up happening is like your social life, as far as like, I mean, it depends. Everybody's different. Some people have different priorities than I do, but from the people that I know and myself, it's like your social life goes from being like, Saturdays and Sundays I go and hang out with friends, or when I get off of work, I'm going to go do these things, to more like, oh, I'm working for 3 weeks, so I got to block everything out. And you don't see your friends until the next time you work with them. And then your social life is no longer outside of work, it's more inside work, which is kind of cool in its own because you, for me, it doesn't really feel like I'm going to work anymore. It kind of feels like I'm going to hang out with friends to make things. And then we're going to wrap this in a couple of weeks. And then I'm going to have a couple of weeks to myself in which I can catch up with a couple of people. And then I'll get called on by a different group of friends. And then we'll hang out for like 2 weeks and make something. And you just kind of do that. What sucks, though, is you can never really truly commit to plans because something could come up, a job could come up, or you could wrap late.
Um, has there ever been a time when you've gotten a call for a job that you really, really, really wanted to take, but you were already committed to another job? And can you tell us what that gig might have been?
Uh, yeah. There was one. There's been a couple. I think one particular. It wasn't a call for a job, but a lot of the way that we get jobs is through Facebook groups. And there was one. I think it was I Need a Producer is the Facebook group name, and in there somebody was looking for an associate producer for a video game company. And I play video games more than I watch movies. I don't even watch TV shows or movies really. Like it's also why I shouldn't be an actor. But I do love video games, and that's where I come from. And I've always wanted to work in that industry. I'd love to do what I do now, but in the industry that I personally am invested in. Um, but I have just started a job coordinating the feature that we just wrapped, and we have two lined up. I'm coming on to the second one right now, and I'm like, I could leave this coordinator job to take this other associate producer in the video game industry job. But like again, hanging out with friends, it's a long-term thing. I've already committed to it, and it just, as much as that would have been cool, um, with the remember this whole social life work thing, like what's most important, like I can make it with this. I'm with the people that I love to be with. We're going to be doing more of this, and this means growth that I'm used to. But by golly, do I want to work in the game industry? I couldn't take it.
What what are some of your favorite games?
Um, you know, Funny enough, like a lot of people hate it, but I've been playing a lot of Fallout 76 lately. And I mean, all the Zelda's a big thing for me. That's like pretty much any symbol that I'll wear is usually like some Zelda symbol somewhere. Grand Theft Auto, I spent a ton of time in. Like I'm looking at it right now, like 382 hours.
Yikes.
But recently, No Man's Sky, which a lot of people hated on because it released like crap, they just updated, and I've been playing it a lot lately. And I've got an Oculus, so I've been flying around in space in VR. So that's kind of where I've been at. In Smash Brothers, of course.
What's your favorite platform?
PC.
PC. Okay.
Yeah,
Um,
I'm PC.
so you've worked on some notable projects. Tell us about some of those. First off, who would you say is the biggest name that you've worked with?
Either Kal Penn or Elijah Wood, I think.
Now, because we're gonna talk about the Kal Penn project, the Elijah Wood project. What was that like? What was it like working on that project?
So, unfortunately, I can't talk too much about it because it hasn't been released yet or anything like that.
Say
I'm
no
under
more.
NDA, so
Say
I
no
can't say
more.
much. But I can say that he is super cool, really awesome guy. Doesn't feel like somebody who's done a lot of big projects. Has no form of an ego about him, and we've talked about video games and hung out, outside his trailer and stuff. He's super chill, and that job went pretty well.
Nice. All right, so I'm not gonna push you anymore on that because we don't mess with NDAs over here. Um,
Yeah.
but uh, tell us about the Kal Penn project because that is actually out and available on Amazon Video, right?
Yes. So basically, I ended up getting this job as a talent associate producer for a show called This Giant Beast That Is the Global Economy. And I ended up, there was a bunch of people ahead of me in the interview process, and I had my resume in, and they were being truthfully like, I really had to have a good chemistry with Cal, and I had to have the right resume credentials. I had to know how to handle myself, um, and this is no joke because we're traveling. So kind of having that on me was super daunting, knowing that how qualified am I, and I ended up getting it, and I ended up going around the world for 3 months to I don't even know, I think like 10, I want to say like 13 to 15 different countries. I can sit here and
Wow.
count them off. And we went to all these different countries basically to find out how economics works, on all these different subjects as far as um, like how Bitcoin essentially works, how money laundering works, how how does the FBI and like counterfeit money and like all these different things about like counterfeit. One topic which is just weird is like, you don't really think about like what is truthfully counterfeit, and they took us over to Prague to look at these statues that were on this bridge, this huge bridge that a bunch of tourists went to. I don't have the name of it in my head right now, but and you look at these statues and they're huge, and they look really old, and everybody loves them. They take pictures of them, and it's the coolest thing. But what you don't know is that those aren't even the real ones. The real ones were taken down in like the early 1900s, I believe, and put underground. And a question that we chased was like, how long does something have to be there until it becomes real? If you swap something out, like of course it's the counterfeit version, but like, what's the limit? Because now everybody thinks it's the real one.
Yeah.
You know. So we explored different topics like that, and ultimately it was insane, craziest experience I ever had.
What was your favorite country to visit?
Oh my god.
Actually,
Uh,
we're gonna play a
uh,
little game anyway. So let's actually play that game right now because this kind of goes
yeah,
into that a little bit. Okay.
yeah.
Very very simple game. Best and worst. I'm gonna ask you like for example, the best country you've visited and the worst country you've visited. Doesn't necessarily have to be about necessarily the country itself, but maybe the
Yeah.
experience. Say the airport was terrible, so the travel was awful, and that sometimes is enough to. I'm a person. I believe that a bad airport can ruin an entire trip. Like, that's just me.
Funny enough, and this isn't the answer to your question, but just to give you this, New York had the worst airport. Just gonna say that.
I mean, I'm not surprised.
No,
I'm
I
not.
don't think anybody is.
I'm not surprised at all. Not at all.
Yeah.
All right, so to the
Good.
game, best country, worst country.
I think that best country was Prague, either Prague or London, but I think it might have been Prague just because it was the most like mind blowing thing to see. You look at all these buildings that are crazy old, that are essentially castles in this huge town, and like the people were amazing, and like there was nothing about Prague that I didn't like. I'm not even a beer drinker, and their beer was so good. It was awesome. Worst country, maybe. Mm, I don't want to say Dubai. Dubai was not a bad country. The hardest thing is that none of them are bad. The only
Yeah.
reason why I'm going to say Dubai is
Maybe you
because
just
it was
enjoyed it a little
so hot.
less.
It was so hot. I enjoyed it a lot. I might have enjoyed it a little less because like that heat is no joke. Like it's real. And when you're over there, you see all these nice lavish things that are amazing, like all these cool towers and all this stuff, and like where all the tourists and stuff go. But like when you look at the people who actually live there, like it's in a totally different environment. Like they sometimes live 12 to a house, or 12 to like some little apartment style thing, and no AC. Um, crazy hot in the desert, and it's mind blowing. You know, it's almost a culture shock because you don't really think about, like, Florida's hot, but you got AC, and it's like you're not stacked like 12 people to a one bedroom apartment that has a bathroom that doesn't have a door.
Nice.
And it's rampant throughout there. So it's not in again. I didn't have to live out there, but seeing how those people, like, that's what they do, and that's what they've gotten used to. And then thinking back to like what we have and what we complain about, um, it's nuts.
What is the best and worst things about auditioning?
Um, Best thing is going in there and
Nailing
coming out
it?
knowing that you nailed it. I think the worst thing is going in there and coming out knowing that you failed it. I don't know. I'm
Nailed it,
fine with
failed
like
it.
going in. Yeah, it's pretty simple. I'm good with talking to people and going in the first time and meeting people and doing that. It's kind of what I've done. But I hate the feeling afterwards of knowing that like I could have not fucked that entire lineup.
What's the best and worst thing about meeting celebrities?
Um, the best thing about meeting celebrities, is that what you said?
Yeah, the best and worst thing about meeting celebrities. Yeah.
Best thing is about meeting. It's hard because I'm not a big celebrity person, but best thing about meeting celebrities is that it's like kind of like finding a rare Pokemon. It's neat. It's like, oh shit, I didn't know you existed, and I've seen you through TV shows and all this stuff, and it's like just through coincidence of timing. Like I met Justin Bieber, and like I don't care for Justin Bieber, but like the odds of me meeting him are like super low.
What was that
So the fact
experience
that that
like?
happened. I mean, I worked at a juice bar, and he came in and he bought some juice, and
Okay.
like,
Pretty
yeah,
straightforward. Pretty straightforward.
yeah, pretty
Now
simple.
was
He and his girlfriend at the time came in, and they ended up snapping. The paparazzi was around. They snapped a bunch of pictures, and they published a picture of my car in the photo with them. And I was like, my car is famous. Nice.
all right. So okay. What's the best and worst thing about a long production day?
Jesus Christ. Oh man, that's yeah. Uh, Best thing about a long production day, I'm gonna go real long. If you have like a 14 to 16 hour day, towards the end, depending on what you're working on, if it's like a feature film and you're just a PA, which is like I love being just a PA. It's just like much less responsibility and many more giggles. You're on like hour 14 or 15. Sometimes it's 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning. You're with a couple of friends, and like you're past the point of tired, and now you're just giggling. I
Mhm.
love that. That's my favorite thing about a long day. My least favorite thing about a long day is when you're not just a PA and you have responsibilities and you have to think about everything that's going on and how you can't go any longer, and all the hurdles that come up that you have to tackle whenever you're anticipating for it not to be. Like you have to feed people every certain amount of hours, every 6 hours. So you start shooting at 8, you got to feed people at 2. Lunch ends at 2:30. That buys you time until I believe 8:30. And let's say you're shooting and it's like 7 o'clock and it's like, you think we're gonna have this shot done? Yeah, we'll be fine. Cool. We don't have to order a second meal for everybody. And then whatever happens, I now have 45 minutes. Something happened in the scene and I got to order a second meal. And I don't know who's about to be able to make food for 40 people when I was just guaranteed all day until 45 minutes ago, you know?
Yeah.
So that stress that hits you in the face, that sucks.
Yeah, but I feel like it helps you learn how to put out fires relatively quickly. You learn how to really think on your feet and problem solve at a level that I think your average person could never, problem solve.
That's what makes it not a bad thing. Like it's the worst, and it sucks, and like I don't. No one ever wants to be a part of it, but ultimately, because that's happened so many times, like I'm ultimately a stronger worker and a quicker thinker, you know. So that's a good thing.
What do you? All right, so that's it for the game. You did a great job. You answered everything as well as I think you could have. But now I want to ask, when a lot of people have dreams of becoming an actor or an actress or getting in the industry, and a lot of people do decide to make that move and, you know, take their shot. What is the most common mistake that you've seen people make that ensure that they don't get work in the industry?
I mean, it depends on what part of the industry that you do, but let's say if you want to be an actor and you work in production, you advertise yourself as an actor, no one wants you to be around because they know that your focus is not on being a better worker, it's about getting yourself noticed. Same thing with people who are like, I'm a director, writer, producer, actor, songwriter, like all these different things. Like, you are none of those, and you should not strive to be all of those because ultimately you will most likely not be successful. But also, when you're advertising yourself to people, it's hard for them to take you seriously because it's like, you know, when I want to buy a computer, I go to a computer store. When I want to buy a lackluster computer, I go to Walmart, you know? So your skills aren't honed on that job, and people kind of pick up on that. And when people advertise themselves uh, as something that does not fit what they're doing, and they don't do whatever they're doing well, that's ultimately what spells disaster for a lot of people who come out here.
So,
And then there's also go on.
so what was that?
Oh, I was gonna say there's also like people come out here and spend all their money trying to get better, more stuff, when
Mm.
really it's not about that. It's about the long haul.
So, I guess you would say that while it's good to be a jack of all trades, it's probably better to specialize in at least one thing specifically.
Exactly, and to know who you're talking to and why you're talking to them about whatever it is. Versus, you know, sometimes a PA will come on and they'll find a way to go to the director and talk about how they're a great actor. Like that's no one, and that happens, and that ultimately is just like that's a
So no go.
red flag on. I can't rely on hiring you to stick focused and get the job done.
So, what would be the one bit of advice you would give people wanting to do what you're doing right now?
Just do it. You know, just
It's just do
not even
it.
kidding. Like fucking Nike.
It's that simple.
Honestly, it's like, the easiest thing to say is like you if you have something that you want to do, and you're afraid to chase it, you know, then ultimately like it's not gonna come to you. And I'm not even gonna sit here and say that I've chased my dreams and accomplished everything I wanted, and this trip was 100% what I planned. It's none of that. But ultimately, doing something got me past where I was. And you don't have to drive across the country to do that. You don't have to chase some crazy dream to do that. All you have to do is just, what do you want to do? Start doing something in it. Like, just head to it.
I think that's a perfect place to end things. Thank you so much, Kasee, for joining me. Congratulations again on Dauntless in theaters September 6th. I'm going to read off the cities one more time so anyone listening knows exactly where they can catch the film. It's going to be in Los Angeles, Minneapolis, Seattle, Chicago, Austin, Dallas, Houston, Cleveland, Tampa, and San Francisco. And it's also going to be available on demand. Wait, right?
Yeah.
On Amazon Video Direct, FandangoNow, Google, Hoopla, iTunes, Overdrive, Redbox on Demand, Sony PlayStation, Vudu, Xbox, you name it, it'll be there. So once again, thank you so much for joining me. I look forward to having you on again sometime and talking about your next feature film hitting theaters.
Great. Thank you so much, man.
All right. Tell everyone where they can find you on social media.
If you search Instagram Chase Tacos, that's pretty much as social media as I get nowadays.
Okay.
I'm not a big guy, but that's where I do all my photography. And if you want to chat or discuss work or anything, you can find me there.
All right. We'll have links to his production page as well as his Instagram and all that in the description below on our YouTube channel. So be sure to be on the lookout for that. So that's going to conclude it. Thank you so much, Kasee Shambora.
Goodbye.
Thanks for watching Dev After Dark. Don't forget to catch us next week for a brand new episode with a fresh new guest. You can follow me on Instagram and Twitter at ThatDamnDevon and follow the show on Facebook at Dev After Dark. Don't forget that we're also available on podcast platforms such as iTunes, iHeartRadio, Google Podcasts, Spotify, I think I said that already, and the like. So don't forget to follow us there and catch us next week for more great talk.